Hi, I'm Tom, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you for selecting this video. In today's video, we're going to replace the ice and water dispenser pads in this Jenn-Air built-in 48-inch refrigerator. These are original factory parts that I ordered. They only come in black and white now. They don't come in this color. These pads wear out over time, these actuators. So this is a pretty easy job. I'll show you how to do this repair. This refrigerator model number is JS48SEDUDB00 with a manufacturing date of January of 2008. The part number is W10133603, and those come in a pair, the ice and water dispenser pads. You cannot buy those separately as far as I know. I am the homeowner and the owner of this refrigerator. I am making these repairs at my own risk. I am not a certified Jenn-Air or Whirlpool repair person. If you follow these instructions, you are making these repairs at your own risk as well. I'm going to help you try to do this job without screwing it up. Okay, the first thing you want to do is be safe. You want to have safety glasses, you want to have gloves, and whenever you're working on an appliance, you always want to turn off the power. So I'm going to do that right now. There's an on-off switch above this refrigerator. That's not good enough. You want to unplug it or turn off the circuit breaker. I'm reaching up here. I have an accessible plug. Okay, the power is off. Okay, to do this job, first we need to remove the stainless steel cover from the door to get access to these controls. I'm going to do that first. The easiest way to screw up this job is to try to use a power tool to do this. This tool has no business on this job. Do not use it, because if you scratch this surface, you just turned a $150 job into a $1,000 job. So don't screw it up. Be very careful that you don't mar the surface of the stainless steel. So I'm just going to use a Phillips head screwdriver. The first thing we're going to do is remove 11 perimeter screws. 1, 2, 3 screws across the top, 6 screws down this side, and 2 on the bottom. There's 11. I'm going to do that right now. Top 3 screws are out. Put these in a safe place because they're actually a different size than the other remaining screws on the perimeter. The screws on this back side look like they're going to be impossible to get out because they're behind this trim piece and I don't know how to get in here. There's an easy way to do it. You can get at them from the inside. So open the door. You can remove these 6 screws from the inside. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, I've removed the 6 screws from the inside. This back side of the door from the inside, I'm going to put those in a safe place. There are 2 more Phillips head screws in the bottom of the door. These are tough to get at. Even with a stubby Phillips screwdriver, you can't get underneath the door. There's not enough clearance between the door and the floor. So I'm using this little socket wrench with a Phillips head tip, so that gives me a shorter clearance. I can get underneath there to get those 2 screws out. I'm going to do that right now. I put those 2 screws in a separate place. I'm labeling all these screws separately as I remove them so that I can reassemble them in the right order. Okay, so we've removed all the perimeter screws. There are 4 more screws left. There are 2 in here under this control unit, and there are 2 under the drain pad. This is not attached, it just slips in there. So now I'm going to remove the 2 upper and the 2 lower screws here and keep those in a safe place. The 2 upper screws are different than the 2 lower screws. Make sure you keep those separate. Okay, this is real important, and this is an easy way to screw up this job. The screws that go on the top of this little dispenser area are shorter with a flat end on them because they're going into a small plastic bracket. The screws on the bottom are longer with a pointy tip. They go down into a metal bracket. If you reverse these and you put this long screw into the top, you're going to break that plastic bracket off, and that's really going to ruin your life, because then you got to order a new part, got to come back and do this job again. So the short stubby one with the flat tip goes up, the longer one with the pointed tip goes down. Make sure you keep those separate. Very easy way to screw up that job. Moving on. Now we are ready to remove the stainless steel door cover. You do not need to remove the handle. All the perimeter screws are removed. Very important point here is that the edges of this stainless steel cover are razor sharp. It is incredibly easy to cut yourself doing this next step. So I strongly recommend wearing gloves to do this and being incredibly careful. I'm gloved up, ready to go. So I'm just pulling this forward. Comes off pretty easily. It's not that heavy. It's not, I'll come back to that. It's not that heavy. This is not a two-man lift. I laid some towels down on the floor so I don't scratch the floor either with those incredibly sharp edges. Now this piece that fell down, when I took that off, this is just an insulating piece of plastic that sits on the inside here. The cover goes over this when I reinstall it. I'm just going to attach this with a little piece of blue painter's tape on the top just to hold this in place until I put that cover back on at the end of the job. Okay, I just put a piece of blue painter's tape up here just to hold that in place. I may have to readjust this when we put the door back on because you have to line up the holes in the door with the holes on this insulating strip, and I have not done that yet. Okay, so now we're getting close to where we need to be. There are two parts here that we still need to remove. The first one is this control panel. The second one is this dispenser housing. Both of these need to come out to be able to get to the ice and water dispenser pads. These require a hex head screwdriver. These are just standard hex head screws. They're both the same size as far as I can tell. First, I'm going to remove the control panel. You'll see why when I take it out, because this bottom piece is actually connected to that. So you got to take out the control panel first. 4 hex head screws in the corners coming out. Okay, I took out the 4 hex head screws. I just put those aside and labeled them control panel, so I know where those go. Now this panel will kind of fall out and it's hanging in there. So I'm going to carefully take this out. And on the back of this, there are 4 connectors into the circuit board. A couple ways you can screw this up. Don't touch the circuit board because static electricity can burn out the circuits, so be careful where you're touching here. And then every time you remove parts from a circuit board, you want to label them to make sure that you can put them back the way that you took them out. This one is actually a good design because there are 4 circuit board attachments from the wire harness. 3 of them, there are 3 different types. There's a white one that goes into the white circuit panel attachment. That's easy. I squeeze that with my thumb. I move it left and right. The white one comes out. That's the only way that can go back in. Then there are 3 black ones, but 2 of them are the same, left and right. This one's a different size, so I'm going to take this one out. There's only one way to put that one back in, so that's easy. I squeeze that with my thumb. There's a tiny tab on the top of that. I squeeze it with my thumb and take that out. And then these 2 are for the dispenser pads, the parts that we're going to be replacing. One on the left and one on the right. These have the exact same connectors on them. They both have 2 red wires coming into them, but there's no way that you can plug this one into this side or this one into that side because the wires aren't going to be long enough. So this is a good design. All 4 of these connectors, it's impossible to plug them in the wrong place. That's called poka-yoke or error proofing. It's a good design for manufacturability. Whoever put this together, good job. Now we'll remove the last 2 black connectors. There's a tiny lever you press with your thumb. That's not coming out. On the right one, tiny lever you press with your thumb. That's not coming out either. Okay, we're going to move to plan B. I'm just going to zoom in on this so you can see what I'm doing. So I got these 2 little clips here. They just wear out over time and they lose their springing capability. That's just not going to go. Normally you should be able to press that with your thumb and pull it out. There it is. I was able to get that. Let me try the other one again. Press that in with your thumb. These are the parts I'm replacing, actually. And that one came out. I just had to press and pull a little bit harder on those. So here's the back side of this control panel. The first one I took out was the white 3-lead connector. Then I took out this larger rectangular black one. with black and a red wire coming into it. And then the two for the dispenser connectors are the same. Those are the last two that I took out. I'm going to set this in a safe place. Okay, we're getting there. So now I've removed the control panel. Now, in order to get these two pads out, I need to remove this housing. There are 3 screws, 1, 2, 3. These are standard hex head screws. I'm just going to take those out. 1, 2, 3. Dispenser housing. Okay, now this dispenser housing is loose. All the wires are attached. This will come straight out. Before I do that, just look at where these wires are coming up through here, because we need to replace these when we put the new unit in. So there's a small channel on each side that these wires come up through. I'll show you that in the close-up. I'm just going to pull this towards me. There it is. This wire goes to the light. There's a light under here that's going to connect back to the circuit board. That's the red and black one. Then the two with the double red wires are the left and right dispenser pad connectors. You can see on the back here, when we put these in, those wires have to go back up through this little channel on the left and on the right. So just so you don't pinch the wires when you replace those, it's good to note that. So now to remove the pads, if you look at them from the back, they're just snapped in here with these plastic clips. So to remove these, you want to slide them up. You can see they're just slid down into these slots, but there's a little catch here on each side, here and here, so they snap down in. So the way to get these out is you got to press in with your thumb and press up, and that slides out. There it is. Next one, press in with your thumb while pressing up. There it is. That one's out. So the two pads come loose. Ice on the left, water on the right. Remember that, because that's the order they have to go back in. Now, these are just taped in here with some Scotch tape. So I'm going to take that tape off and remove the old wires. We're going to discard these parts. Here's the old ice actuator. Peel that tape off. There's the old water actuator. Okay, I've removed the old Scotch tape that was holding those wires in place. Now we're ready to do the assembly. So this housing is now ready to install the new parts. When I took those old pads out, it was a little dirty around the edges, so I cleaned that up as best I could, because you want this to look like it came just from the factory. So now the housing is ready to install the new parts. And the ice goes on the left, the water goes on the right, and some engineer was thinking, because they actually imprinted that right in the plastic, ice on the left with the I, W on the right with the water, so you don't screw that up. That was some good thinking right there. So I'm going to start with the ice one on the left. Now when you open these up from the factory approved part bag, there's a little piece of tape on the back that you can remove and discard. Then here's the double lead wire, the two red wires, just like the one I took off. So you want to unfurl that wire like that. Then this is going to snap back in. So there's one easy way to screw this up, is you snap this in backwards. It'll actually fit backwards, don't do that. Another way to screw it up is you snap this in on the front, but you forget to put the wires through the hole. That's really bad, because then you might crimp the wires and have to buy that again. So you want to fish the wire through the hole. Make sure that this is the ice dispenser that matches the I. Ice goes with I. And then all I'm going to do is push down on this. There it is, snaps in. That's pretty easy. That looks good. I like the black color better than that gray color. Let's move on to the water button. I take the tape off. I unfurl my double red leads. And I fish the red wire through the hole, just like I did for the ice. put that in place, I make sure that I'm not catching the wires in the back. Look at that. I almost screwed that job up. If I had just jammed that in place and I pinched those red wires, I could cut that wire. So you want to make sure you pull those wires through and that they have clearance. There's no catching. Line up the 3 tabs, 2 on the bottom, 1 on the top. Push down, boom, there it is. That job's in. Okay, so I got my 2 pads in. Now I need to tape these wires back on, just like when it came from the factory. I just got a little cellophane tape right here. So I'm just gonna tape these up a little bit to keep them nice and neat, and so they don't get pinched in behind the screws when I put this housing back in. So I just taped these wires in so they're nice and neat and so they don't get caught by the screws when we put the housing back in. That looks just like it came from the factory. Actually, I think I did a little better job than when it came from the factory. My taping job was a little neater than what I saw here. So this is ready to reinstall. Okay, now we're gonna reassemble everything in the reverse order. So I put all my screws over here and I labeled them so that I know what order they go in, so I can put them all back the same way I took them out. First thing we do is put the housing back in. Check the wires, make sure you don't have any wires catching on anything. Got good clearance. That looks good. Dispenser housing goes back in with the 3 hex head screws that we took out. Now you want to be careful when you're cranking these down. When you're working with plastic or you're working with thin sheet metal, really just lightly hand tighten these. You do not want to crank these down. You'll crack this plastic, that'll ruin your day. Then you got to order new parts. You screw up your job. Just get that in hand tight. You don't want to torque down on that. You also want to make sure that you didn't get your wires caught anywhere. So I still got clearance on all my wires. Next, I'm going to reattach the wire connectors to the control panel circuit board. Do this in the reverse order that I took it out. And the ice pad goes on the left. It's impossible to put it in. Oh, almost did that upside down, but somebody was thinking it was impossible for me to do that. Left one only fits on the left side. It's impossible to put it in backwards. It's impossible to put it in upside down. Only fits one way. The right pad connector goes on the right side. Only one way to put that. The light connector goes in here. It has a different size, only fits there. And the 3-lead white connector goes in the 3-lead bin. There it is. That's an easy connection. Tuck your wires in carefully. Make sure you don't get your wires caught where your screws are going to go. The control panel lines up in these little slots in the refrigerator door, so it doesn't require any leveling or anything. That's a real nice design there. Then I put my 4 hex head screws in here and attach this control panel. I just zoomed in here to show you how I almost screwed up this job. I got ready to put this screw in, and look where my wires are. My wires are outside the control panel, right in the screw hole. If I had torqued down on this screw, I could have cut through the wires. So I got to take this back out and move that wire to a safe place. Sometimes when you put the new part in, you think the job's done, you get a little hasty, you get a little lackadaisical. It's how problems happen. It's how you screw up the job. I didn't tuck that wire in properly. I didn't check that side. Got a little cavalier with myself. I'm good now. All good. Don't crank down on this. You're screwing into this plastic. Wow, this thing, you do not want to, there's no contest for how tightly you can screw these screws in, because you'll break these corners off, I can tell. Okay, my control panel is in. I clean that up again. Get to the parts that I can only get at one time in my lifetime when I take that cover off, because I want this to look like it came just from the factory. Got a little smudge there. That looks really good. Moving on. Okay, I'm ready to put the door cover back on. So I'm going to put my gloves on before I touch that razor sharp edged stainless steel cover. Before I do, I just wanted to point out again this little black insulating strip on the side. I'm going to leave this blue painter's tape on there because you have to line up the holes in that insulating strip with the holes in the door. I only got 2 hands. I can't do this all at once. So I'm going to leave that little blue tape on there. I don't think that's going to violate my warranty. Let's glove up. I'm gloved up, ready to go. That fits on real snug. You don't have to worry about lining that up. It lines itself up. That's a real nice fit. Now I'm going to put the 15 screws back in, 11 perimeter screws, and the 4 screws around the dispenser. Okay, before I put the screws back in, I'm actually going to plug this in and test it, because the last thing you want to do is put 15 screws in and then plug it back in and press the buttons and find out that they're not working somehow. I'm pretty sure it's going to work, but it's a good thing to test it first. Let me plug this back in. I'm just giving this a minute to boot up. Everything's working here on the control panel. Ice dispenser's working. Water dispenser's working. Those buttons feel real nice compared to the old ones. You really had to press pretty hard on those old ones. Those things wear out over time. This refrigerator is 12 years old. If you're drinking 8 glasses of water a day, you're going to wear that thing out. So I'm just going to have a little drink of water. Okay, good, let's go. I'm going to unplug this again because I'm not done with the job yet. We got to be safe. Surprise, surprise. Look what I just found. An extra part. There was another piece of plastic insulation on the bottom of the door that I didn't know about. Just saw that laying there. Thank God I didn't put 15 screws in yet. I got to take that cover back off. Put this one on the bottom. I can tell this one on the bottom, not the top, because there's 2 screw holes in it. If it went on the top, there would have been 3. Let me get this back in on the bottom. But I'm going to glove up, because again, I'm working with that razor sharp edge. You know how I know that edge is razor sharp? You know how I know. Okay. Whoa. Okay, I just carefully removed that cover, and I put that bottom piece of insulation in with another small piece of blue painter's tape. I'm going to slip this cover back on. I put it on up and over the top. You want to get it up and over that side. Piece of insulation. There we are. That's a good fit. We're ready to put the 15 screws back in now. Okay, I'm putting the perimeter screws in. I just did the 3 on the top, the 6 down the back side. I got 2 more to put in on the bottom with my little L-shaped socket. Okay, I did the 11 perimeter screws. Now I'm doing the 2 screws in the top of this dispenser unit up here. Those are the short, stubby ones with the flat bottom on them. They're going into a plastic bracket. Be careful with those. And then the 2 down here, the longer pointing tip ones. Okay, the 15 perimeter screws are in. The last piece is this drain pan. This just slides in. That job is done 100%. So we replaced the ice and water dispenser pads on this refrigerator. That was a pretty easy job. If you need to replace any of the other parts inside of here, I have another video you can watch. If you press that little button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, I do a video where I replace the ice dispenser motor and bracket inside of here. And there's also a flap, a door flap that closes up inside this ice dispenser. I show how to replace that as well. So there's a few more parts in there you might be interested in if you're doing any other repairs on this unit. I've replaced almost everything on this unit at this point. Thanks for watching my video. Good luck in your next repair, and don't screw it up.